Hey everybody, I'm Lon Stroshine, former public company executive turned lifestyle engineer. In 2022, I walked away from my job as a public company executive. I left without a safety net, without another job, without a backlog of clients, or without a resume. But I left anyway. I left because I knew the best days of my life were right in front of me, and they weren't going to be lived where I was standing. Since then, I've launched a best-selling book, coached thousands of elite performers around the world, hosted a top-rated podcast, moved my family across the country, and created a movement that has inspired the change in 1,000 lives. Look, if you're here, it's not an accident or an algorithm. It's you. If you've reached the top of your game and you feel stuck, if you'd trade what you have but don't know what you'd trade it for, then buckle up. This podcast is for you. I'm glad you're here. Let's get started. I'm going to see all of you along the Normal 40 Highway. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Normal 40, the podcast. My name is Lon Stroshine. I am the founder of the Normal 40, and I am super excited that you are here today. Man, do we have another fantastic episode for you today. Today, I am joined by Dr. Adam Goodcoff. Now, Adam and I have known each other, well, we don't know each other. You've been on this podcast before. You know how this works. I don't know Adam at all. We connected through mutual friends, somebody else who's on the Normal 40 Highway, actually a client of mine. Thank you, Patrick. I was connected to Patrick by another client of mine. Thank you, Jeff. And who knows how I was connected to Jeff. But that's the point of this podcast. Just getting started, just leaning in, following your gut, doing the hard things. And now this is the really exciting thing. Do you know why Adam was really excited to be on my podcast? Because he wanted access to my thousands and thousands of followers because he's got a couple million. So needless to say, he's kind of a big deal. But he's also just an incredibly decent dude who's been faced with some hard decisions, had to make some calls, relying on his gut, and doing things that didn't feel easy, obvious, or free, and from the outside looked irresponsible. But they've unfolded for him in a pretty great way. So for all of you who are on the fence, wanting to do something other than what you're doing today, you're going to really enjoy this podcast. You're going to really enjoy getting to know Adam. And I would encourage all of you to just pay attention to the things that he does along the way to help him reason through some of his decisions. All right, everyone. Thanks for being here. If this resonates with you, go ahead and go to normal40.com and join me. Join my Insider free newsletter. The Rambler is my newsletter. The Insider is the name of my private and exclusive community. You're invited. And then Vintage One is my high-end, really impactful, life-changing cohort where you get to spend time with me one-on-one and 5 other people who are right where you're at. And together we change one another's lives. And I'm batting a perfect average in that group. The people who show up there are incredible. So thanks for being here. And I'm going to see all of you on the podcast. There's a 90% chance that right now this is going to be part of the podcast, just so you know. So let's make no bones about it. Sure. We're just getting right into this.
Yeah,
and
love
we
it.
call this a ramble for a reason. And this is how we roll.
I'm on board with it. Let's ramble on.
All right, baby. Well, look, here's the deal. A little bit of background for the listener. Adam and I don't know one another. Full stop. We were connected by a mutual friend, Patrick O'Malley. And Patrick is one of those guys who, when he says you should meet this person, you should meet that person. And we connected. And that was just a couple weeks ago. Adam and I hopped on a short phone call. It was probably about 35, 40 minutes. And we realized, hey, let me say it this way. I realized this dude is doing some really cool stuff. And he's got a story that probably fits with my audience. And my audience is going through this transition of I've done a lot, I've done well, I've checked all the boxes. Man, I'm really proud of what I've done, but I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But I don't know what I'd rather do instead. And so that's the intersection of Normal 40. Well, here's a guy, Adam, who I came in contact with, who learned earlier than me. I was in my mid-40s, learned earlier that maybe the path he was on, while not the wrong path, needed to change a little bit. And that's what brings us here. And we're going to get into all that. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm ready to do it. And I love that intro, man. I'm hyped up to hear my own answer here now. So let's do it.
I'm going to drop this. I'm going to drop us right here. Tell us what was going on in your life. Where were you? What was going on around you in 6th grade?
In 6th grade. God. I don't know that sixth grade was a notable time in like U.S. history. If we rewind it back a little, like third grade, I was actually talking about this at dinner last night. I think third grade was almost 9/11, so we were kind of in an interesting phase. I mean, I'm pretty young. I don't know. It's a really interesting question. I've never been asked that. Like I can tell you eighth grade. That was you're
No,
getting ready
no,
for
no.
high
Let's do
school.
third grade, man. I love
Third
it.
grade.
I love it
Okay.
because everybody's gonna relate. Third grade. Tell me what was going on. Where were you?
Yeah.
What was going
So
on?
I mean, yeah, well, I'll just lean on the 9/11 example because we just talked about this last night. As I remember, I went to a small private school. We are sitting there, no TVs, wasn't fancy like that, but you had the roller cart TVs, and third grade, you're a little too young to understand. But I just remember all the really well off kids, their parents were coming to pick them up, and I'm like, man, why all these people get to leave during the day? And I love my parents dearly, but I'm like, well, why don't I get to go home? Like they're not coming to pick me up; they're waiting for the bus, and it's funny. My dad and my sister both have a birthday on September 11th. And so my sister at the time was in like kindergarten. And obviously 9/11 means nothing to a kindergartner. And so my parents were trying to balance like, okay, we have this third grader who kind of knows what's going on. We have a kindergartner who has no freaking clue and it's her birthday. And why isn't anyone happy? And I just remember like the most depressing Applebee's dinner. Back when Applebee's was a big thing, we were saying this last night. We walked by the non-smoking section, or walked by the smoking section into the non-smoking section. So adding a little bit of date there to set the stage for that time in America. And I remember sitting down and just a constant replays of the Twin Towers and yeah, it's still, I think I knew I was old enough to know that something wasn't right. My parents were acting weird. But then also it was like, oh, it's my dad and sister's birthday. We're supposed to be happy. We're having brownies. Like this is so I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for, kind of a side path, but that's what I remember of that age in particular, of that day in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you said something that I want to correct. Applebee's is still a big deal. All right.
Okay.
Just want you to know.
Great
For
appetizer deals, great drink
That's
deals.
right. That's right. That wasn't a 20-year ago thing. And it's just fascinating. So on 9/11, you were in third grade. I was 24 and working for a U.S. senator. But you were in New York State though at the time too, right? So I mean, this
Yeah.
had some proximity for you.
Yeah, there were so I found out later on, again, third grade, you don't really understand like the world or the magnitude of it, but I remember I had a friend who had family in like the Bronx or something like that, Brooklyn and Bronx, I think. And at the time I was like, oh, it's all just down there. We're up here. I grew up in upstate New York, so I'm like, oh, we're up here and that's down there. But he was one of the ones who left, and I wouldn't say it was like one of the well-off ones. He just was another kid that left, and I remember like, oh, it's kind of weird. Well, obviously, it turns out like he had family that worked in that area, and so it had a totally different meaning. But yeah, there were tangible connections for almost anyone in New York who knew someone that worked in the World Trade Towers or in FDNY or in NYPD. I mean, I remember even in high school, I was like a volunteer firefighter, and one of the older guys who was like a captain or some kind of like leader within the department, he came from FDNY, and he would tell stories. I mean, he had tons of guys he was friends with that lost their life that day. So it's yeah, definitely has a closer tie, I think, when you're from New York. But I certainly, I wasn't here in the city during that time, so some degree of separation.
I remember when I was in sixth grade, we had veterans from the Vietnam War come in, and they talked about the experience and what they went through. And I remember sitting there thinking, um, these guys went through a lot. These stories are really powerful. But I also remember thinking, wow, these guys are really old, you know? I mean, I was thinking these guys are really old who went all the way back in Vietnam. And as I think about now, where I sit today in relation to 9/11, that's the same age gap. I'm that old guy now who would tell
Oh,
the story about 9/11 because I was 23, 24 when it happened.
right,
Those guys were in Vietnam. They were 23, 22. And so
right.
it's like and it's just amazing to me how this time, big events in time that these events that kind of shape us in our youth and this time goes by and we go from being the young one who witnesses it to the older one talking about it
Oh
and we
yeah.
become this we become the old people.
It's amazing how time dilates with age and or really shrinks, I should say. Time, it's like reverse time dilation. I mean, when you are young, time takes so long. Bring it back to third grade. How many hours do you spend staring at that quartz clock that just won't tick up to the end of the, class? And now I look down and it's 10 p.m. and I'm like, where did the day go? I look back and I'm like, where was the summer? It's pitch black outside. I'm just getting into some of my afternoon meetings. I'm like, how is that possible? Time is flying. And I talked to my dad, who's, on his way very close towards 70, and it's a totally different. He's recently retired, and he's kind of in this mindset where he's like, you think that's fast? Now, I'm out here doing my own thing, and he's like, time literally flies. So it's a crazy concept.
Okay, so super cool. Um, well, let's fast forward. We've now been through sixth grade. Fast forward for me to high school and what you're
Sure.
into, what was going on. I know when we talked last time, you mentioned swimming. You said at one
Hmm.
time, you said
Yeah.
swimmer, and then we moved past it. And I have a
Yep.
feeling that there's more to that story since in a short conversation you brought that up. But just talk to me about family, high school, and kind of what was going on.
Yeah, there's a lot. So I came from a small private school, and I lived again in upstate New York, and was part of a very, very large public school system. So I'd never been to a school with, I mean, they were literally, I think, 12 or 13 kids in my class in private school. And so coming from eighth grade into high school was a big transition. Trying to figure out how you fit into the mix of a class of 900 or 1100 or whatever it was. So that was some growing pain, and I think it was kind of funny to watch because as we'll talk, I'm sure in a moment, but I was somewhat athletic and a swimmer and these type of things, and so both the guys and girls side of things, they're trying to figure out like where does this guy fit in? I've never seen him before. I don't know what he does. He kind of does these athletic things. He's not totally weird, but not totally normal. I don't really know. So that whole first year was pretty wild. But the one thing that gave me a big sense of purpose was swimming. I'd been swimming long time. I was pretty young when I started. Not like to the point of, you see the little like 3, 4 year olds that are in the pool. I mean, I had been swimming, but not competitively at that point. So maybe I was 8 or 9 years old when I started swimming, and figured out pretty quickly that I was decent, right? I'm a tall guy. I'm 6'3", and that's a strength in swimming. And I kind of had a knack for it. I had a great, breath holding capacity, and I just seemed to kind of take a liking to it. And my dad actually was a swimmer in high school as well. So he was, very supportive. And I think it's one of those things, you see your children doing something that you did, and you want them to do it at a higher level. And so I went down the swimming road, and, to kind of pull that thread through high school, I had this interesting dichotomy. It's actually, I'm sure it will come up later on, but it was the first time in my life where I felt like what I was doing maybe wasn't totally right for me, because I have this unhealthy obsession with extreme sports. On the low end of extremeness, just something like downhill skiing, right? I don't even know if I'd call it extreme, but downhill, backcountry, those type of fun things. But on the upper end, I was racing motocross. I had a downhill mountain bike and was doing downhill mountain biking in the Northeast, which, if you're familiar, is pretty gnarly trails up here. Um, and I had a Yamaha R6 that I had actually initially I started on the street, and I had gone through a couple motorcycles, and realized street was super dangerous. Didn't love riding with grandma to making turns, and so actually turned it into a track bike as well. And so started racing the motorcycles on the track. So I loved all of that, but at the same time I was swimming, and I had not accidentally, but I kind of accidentally got quite good at swimming, to the point I want to say it was my sophomore year. I was starting to be very competitive in the sectionals, and so those who know swimming know California, some of Florida. There's a couple like hotspots of really competitive swimmers, and then New York actually has a pretty strong contingent of swimming as well from a national perspective. One of the folks who ended up doing some coaching for me was a former. It's like the trial before the Olympics, but she was a female athlete who was in the trials for the Olympics, so pretty close. So we had some good swimming coaching and talent up there, and so it got quite serious. I got pretty competitive, and it was to the point I can't remember if it was sophomore or junior year, but I started going to states, and we started. We were a pretty competitive team. We would get invited to kind of events all around New York, and then of course at states, and we actually won states 2 or 3 years in a row. So we were a pretty strong force, and so it was it was this first time where it was like, okay, I've become really good at this one thing, right? I was specialized in breaststroke. I kind of became like the team solution to breaststroke, and I had this feeling where I'm like, I don't know that I really love this. I'm really good at it, but I don't know that I actually love it. And meanwhile, my other friends who didn't swim and didn't do these things and weren't at 3 hour practices every day and on Saturday and all this, they were out riding dirt bikes and building jumps and going skiing on the weekend. And it was later, maybe junior or senior year, where I got the first kind of hint from the coach where they were like, hey, you can't ski this year. Well, what do you mean I can't ski? And they're like, well, if you fall and break something, we're screwed. And we won states last year, and we need to win states again this year. So you're not swimming, or you're not skiing, or you're not swimming. And I was like, oh, I don't know. I guess I'm good at the swimming thing. It seems to be good. So I guess I won't ski this year. I really didn't get to go. And that was the first time I had kind of felt that way about something, where I didn't have the confidence to say, you know what, I actually don't love this swimming thing, and I should go forward and live my life and ski. And again, I'm a big believer that I would never change what happened in the past. I think very linearly, like what you've done and what you've experienced defines where you get today. And so I'm not, spiteful of that. I don't wish that I changed it. Um, but it gave me an interesting experience of if I were the person I am today, then would I have still swam or would I have said, hey, this was a great swimming career. I really appreciate everything, but I know I'm not going to swim forever and I want to spend some time doing other things. So I think about that sometimes. But to end the high school story, swam through high school, had the opportunity to swim in college. But as I kind of alluded to, was definitely done with that and decided to pass on that and just go to college regular.
Fascinating, dude. Um, okay, so tell me, spoiler alert for everybody who hasn't read Adam's bio, he becomes a doctor. Okay. But still staying at high school or just early life.
Yeah.
When did it start percolating in your head, or when was it placed in your head, however it worked, that maybe I should be a doctor? When did that start finding you?
Well, and piecing the puzzle pieces together here, I grew up in a Jewish household, so my choices were be a doctor, be a lawyer, or own your own business. And I had no idea how to own a business or what that looked like. Very scary idea to me. Didn't know how to make money. Really didn't like law. I found that most lawyers I met were super argumentative and just didn't feel like it fit what I wanted. And I thought medicine was cool. I was a lifeguard at the time. I really liked the kind of life-saving stuff. And again, the adrenaline, the excitement. And actually in high school, I started to get involved, I mentioned with the fire department. That was my way in to get into EMS. What I really wanted to do was EMS. I was like, man, how cool would it be if I could be in an ambulance and like go help people, live time, emergencies, like anything as you grow up. It's not quite like that, but that was my way in. And I started doing that. I actually did EMS for like 5 years. I think I started when I was 16 maybe. And right up until the day I left for med school, I was working as an EMT. And so my dad gets credit for kind of planting that seed and being like, here are your options. And, I picked from those options. I said, oh, geez, I guess like a doctor's what I like the most out of that. And it turned out to be a great fit. I mean, I very much enjoyed uh, my time in EMS. That strengthened my interest in being a physician and obviously drove me to continue down that path. But it was high school. I wasn't, I don't tell that like classic story. I was playing with a plastic stethoscope at 2 years old. Like I was not doing that. Yeah. I was riding dirt bikes.
Yeah, but it makes sense. But so you decided fairly young in life that, hey, look, this you were given three options, and this was the option you're going to pursue. But it fit you. It fit you. Is it, like I'm learning who you are right along with everybody else. But certainly the sense of adventure,
Hmm.
the extreme nature of the profession, be it in an ambulance or an ER,
Hmm.
kind of being at the center of uncertainty
Right.
and an element of risk and reactivity, just counting on yourself. I mean, all of that is present in the profession you went down. So it,
Right.
it makes perfect sense that would be something you'd pursue. Okay, so let's hop forward a little bit now. Um, a spoiler alert again for everybody listening. You go to med school, and we'll talk about that. I'll let you define how you did in med school. And
Sure.
you get to this place where you are now, where yes, you're still a doctor, yes, you're still practicing, but it's not a 40-hour, 60-hour, probably 70-hour a week dedication to the profession of specifically medicine.
Yep.
It is, but not directly. So help take me through med school and when this thing came to be, and
Yeah.
then which become your business. And then I want to start getting into your business.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So we got to go back a little bit to go forward. So we'll go back just a touch to college. And it's important to set the stage because I wasn't the best high school student. Like I said, I was swimming, which takes a ton of time, and I wanted to go out and ride dirt bikes and mountain bikes and all this other fun stuff. So, I got, I don't know, 85s, whatever it was, maybe the occasional 90, but nothing particularly impressive. Graduated college. I mean, graduated high school, got into college, and I got there, and first semester hit. I think I got like a 3.3 or something. I'm like, ooh, not gonna get into mid school with that. And so I kind of had that tough look, where it was,
Dude,
and
I would have
nobody,
loved a 3.3. I'm just going to
yeah,
tell you. I just got to insert it. A 3.3. I think my graduating semester, I might have eked out a 3.5, but that's
well,
just because all of my friends had graduated. I'm like, holy shit, I
yeah,
better just
yeah.
get going here. But anyway, continue on. Sorry. Hey, everyone. Thanks for listening to Normal 40, the podcast. I just wanted to let you know that one of the questions I get asked all the time is, okay, what's next? I'm here, I'm listening. Your content is good. The podcasts are great, but what can I really do? And I tell people, I've created a community for you and I don't advertise it very much, but I'm going to advertise it here. The community is called The Insider. If you go to my website, normal40.com, click on communities, The Insider is $25 a month. and you can cancel after the first month or after the first year or after the first decade. It's a month to month conversation. And every day I'm in there and we're communicating in a forum. And every other Thursday, we have office hours where I'm in there and the whole community shows up and we support one another through their journey. I want you to check it out. If you use code Insider Access, the first month is on me. Go to normal40.com, check out the Insider, and I'm going to see all of you on the inside. All right. I'll get you back to the podcast. Thanks for being here. I'll see all of you on the next page.
And there's a ton of there's a lot in that actually to the sacrifice that you make to go to medical school, right? There's especially now it's so hyper competitive, which is a whole other topic we can discuss. But I mean, you really have to be hitting 4.0, like 3.9, 4.0 to get in. Maybe at a Harvard, like you can be a 3.6 or 3.7, but there's more to that picture. But point being, I realized 3.3 wasn't going to cut it from kind of like a mid-tier school, and so I had to make some changes, and I really buckled down. I made those changes, and I want to say I came out of the back half of my freshman year, maybe like a 3.86 or something. And it was like a light switch, like something changed. And nobody, as I was going to say, is like, nobody did that to me. It wasn't like, I didn't have parents that were like, you must do this, you must do, they just were like, well, I mean, you're going to have to find some strategy changes if you want to do this doctor thing. Otherwise you have to start looking at something else. And I think like a lot of people, I don't like when people are like, oh, you can't do that. And I'm like, you don't know me. I'm going to do that thing. Like I can do that. So I had that light switch moment, and at the same time, I started to write a blog. And it's kind of an interesting story, but there was a girl that I was seeing at the time who worked in social media, and I remember I tell this story all the time now because I think it's really funny. I thought to myself, what a stupid job! Like you work on social media, like you're an adult. And she was a bit older. She was done with college, and she worked for a large corporation, and she's like, yeah, I manage all of their social media accounts. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's really interesting. And I'm going back talking to my friends who are all, 19, 20 years old. I'm like, this girl like works on Twitter all day. And they're like, wow, interesting. So anyway, really like the girl. And she's like, you should write, like you do all this science stuff, but you should use the other side of your brain. You should write a blog. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe I'll write a blog about trying to get into med school because I'm kind of this like pseudo failure trying to turn into a success. I'm sort of doing it. Let me write this down, kind of chronicle the process. And if it works, then like the best guide to get into med school for like Poor Man's Guide to Med School just came out. And if not, I guess it's an interesting read of like a crash and burn of like someone who gave it all and didn't get there. Obviously, the fast forward spoiler is I did get there. The blog became very helpful, and that'll become important later in the story. But when we get to med school, I had that mindset again, and I should share the rest of college was an upward trend. I want to say I ended almost at like a 4.0. So I really had figured out the science of like busting out the grades and doing the things. I had all the papers and checked all the boxes for research. I had everything that I needed. So I interviewed at a lot of med schools, ultimately decided on a medical school that I felt fit me and gave me the kind of connection or campus feel that I wanted. And so went down there and same thing, kind of first semester was okay. But a lot of learning and a lot harder than college. And so I kind of always came in thinking, wow, these other people are a lot smarter. I really have to work hard to keep up. So I've always really thought that hard work and good work ethic beats almost anything else out there. And I applied that. And I did really well. I ended up, kind of excelling again. And as the years continued on, graduated in the top 20% of our class. And it was a larger class. And that gave me a lot of opportunities for where I wanted to do my residency in emergency medicine. But the interesting part of how we get to the business is I actually extended. There was a pretty competitive program in my medical school where you could stay for a year as a teaching fellow. So it was a kind of a fellowship where you could do instruction in anatomy. Teaching the first and second years, you would do actual cadaver lab with dissection. You'd be one of the instructors that's in there doing the hands-on teaching. You would lecture in a lecture hall to 200 folks. And I had been teaching my whole life. I taught when I was in EMS, I taught BLS and ALS, CPR, and all of those good things. So it appealed to me. The extension by a year didn't, but they covered tuition. So I said, okay, it's kind of like a scholarship. They'll pay for the time. I'm not really losing anything except a year of time. And, I get this opportunity to teach and learn what that's like. So I took the opportunity. It was the first time in my life I'd ever had a true 9 to 5. I didn't have to be into the office till 9. I would be home every day at 4:30 or 5, a couple hours of lecture here and there, preparing slides. I mean, it was a pretty good life. And so you're a hyper learner in medical school. You hear about like Navy SEALs coming out and they're like hyper everything. They can do everything. When you hone that skill, which is your brain to that level, you can do things really, really quickly. And my example I always say is like I learned Spanish from Hola up to conversational Spanish in 3 months. And I did it myself. I used Rosetta Stone. I used podcasts. I was watching TV because I now had all this time and I know what to do with it. So every day from 5 to 9, I was studying Spanish at my kitchen table. And after I finished that, I'm like, okay, what? I've got the Spanish thing, right? I get bored easily. That's an ER thing. So I'm like, great, I can kind of speak with people now. This is good. What do I do? I like this teaching thing. A lot of opportunity out there for this. I had done this blog in the past. I'd thought about YouTube in the past. Never really had success there. And I talked to one of my buddies and he's like, well, a lot of people are making these Instagrams now. Maybe you should make an Instagram. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm kind of like a shy guy. I really don't want to post pictures of myself. And it's not for me. So we really got to be there. So I begrudgingly agreed. We start this Instagram with my extra time now. We just kind of post pictures and I do what I was doing in the past, which is writing these blogs. And I'm kind of putting these short blogs as the caption below, if you can remember back when Instagram was just a photo app. And that started to get traction. And I started to realize really quickly, I can reach 200 students in a lecture hall, but I'm getting like 500 students to read my post. And they're commenting and they're saying this helped with their studying. And that 500 became 5,000, became 50,000, right? It started to grow. And then as we get towards the end and into my residency, TikTok happens. I get on TikTok very early. I have this skill set that I've been learning.
Give me a year. Give me a year when TikTok
Year
happens, when you
would have been 2019, I guess.
okay,
Um,
recently. All right, go
18
ahead.
or 19. Yeah, I guess it would have been 19. It was kind of the fall of 19 because I remember I was living in Pittsburgh at the time and I posted a video that had to do with some kind of medical topic. It was like one of the first TikToks I made, and the platform was really, really early. I mean, to the point that people would kind of look and go, oh, I can't believe you're on TikTok. Like it's a bunch of like young girls dancing around. I'm like, I don't know. I think there's an opportunity here. Like, and I wasn't dancing around. I mean, that wasn't the content. I went on a vacation with my now fiance, and we're in Thailand, and she's like, "Oh, your phone keeps vibrating." And we had Wi-Fi, so I take it out, and it's like, "You have 50,000 notifications." I'm like, "What? What is this?" And it turns out that video had like gone viral. Um, and it was like the little you open the app, you couldn't even read it. I mean, it was all these comments and likes, and so I'm like, oh my God, I think this TikTok thing might be a thing. It's the old like there's a there. Like this is interesting. So I come back to do with this. Like, I guess I got to start making this video content. So then I start making videos. I'm like, how can I connect with audiences? Right. And that's the first time I really started to try to optimize my content from like an education and entertaining perspective. And we saw tremendous growth. And so now we're into 2020, 2021, and we crossed a million marker. We're on our way towards 2 million. Along this path, right? Obviously, I build up the business of influencer marketing. I start to learn all of the things of influencer marketing and run my own kind of small company, which small is modest. It's gotten like my personal, social media has gotten pretty robust. I'm very, very proud of the team that helps support me with that. But at the time, I never thought it would be this. And through that, which is where we're going, I promise to the listeners, we are getting there to the main core business, which is Medfluencers that I now run. We get into residency. So we are, to give you the year, 2021, maybe. I've just started in 2020,
COVID.
actually. Yeah, COVID. I just started my residency. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm playing Call of Duty, having a beer, and I'm talking to one of the guys I live with.
I like to imagine all my doctors sitting on a couch, having a beer, playing Call of Duty,
You know, that's
preparing to see me the next day.
that's a reality. It was a day off. It was a day off.
All right.
But I'm sitting there, and he worked in tech, and I'm talking. I'm like, I do these videos, and there's all these other doctors and people that are doing these videos. What if we were able to make like a community and kind of bring the quality of everyone's content up, make collaboration easier, maybe even bring them brand partnerships, right? I'm now seeing this growth. I maybe, made my first, I remember the first brand deal I ever did was $50. And I was like calling my parents, oh, I got $50. Can you believe it? And so now I'm maybe at like the $500 mark or maybe $1,000 something. And so I'm starting to think again, like, man, if I could show all of these brands that I have this group of an audience, maybe we could bring that into them and make it a win for everyone. He goes, yeah, I could probably build something like that, kind of like a little platform. So that was the first idea. And it got tabled because residency. And anyone who's unfamiliar with residency, you work 80, 90 hours a week, every single week. You don't get vacation. That rare Bud Light day off is not something that's common. And so we had the cool idea. My other good friend that does a lot of my editing for social media, was on board with that too. And he said, well, I could help with the content creation. I could help curate the community. So we had this plan, but it just fell apart from time. And fast forward to I guess back half of 2021, maybe 2022, we had been kind of noodling on the idea and how it would work. And that's when I met one of my co-founders now in the company, who is an oncologist and very well known in the space, very well known in pharma, and had a lot of experience. And he kind of came and said, hey, I heard you've been working on this thing, kind of just tinkering on it. You need to do it now. Like this is so in demand, and in the next few years, you're going to see there's a huge need for this. And nobody talked about social media and healthcare at the time. Nobody talked about HCP influencers or digital opinion leaders. So I said, I don't know. I'm in residency. I'm working 90 hours a week. I can't really like do this business. I don't even know how to do a business. I've never really run one, and I can't do it. I said, no, no, no. You got to do it now. We got to figure out how to raise money, and this has to be a real thing. So overnight, I'm like young and impressionable. I'm working hard in residency, and I'm like, okay. I mean, this experienced guy says I got to do it. I guess we'll give it a shot. And truly, like the rest is history. I remember exactly where that phone call was. I was standing in San Diego at a medical conference. All my friends were inside having breakfast, and I'm standing outside talking to Sanjay. And he's like, "You got to do this thing. This is the time is now." And I hung up, and I'm like, "Okay, I guess we'll see." And so it's kind of the revival of what Medfluencers is and could be, and it truly is kind of like the rest is history. Since then, it's been really tremendous what we've built, not only from a representation and support of the influencers and bringing brands and clients from large pharma and device to these digital opinion leaders, these healthcare providers, but also now into the tech world and the way that we incorporate AI and look at what digital influence is and impact and those type of things.
Okay. I want to go back. I'm going to go back into our ramble a little bit. I
Yeah.
want to go, and I actually want to go all the way back to your freshman year of, I think it was college, when
Okay.
you moved from a 3.3 to a 3.8.
Yeah.
What happened? What you said you just got good at learning. And you started a blog that I love. I romantically named "How to Get into Med School for Pseudo Failures," which
Yeah.
is brilliant, by the way. I would read that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what was the thing in addition to the blog, in addition to all the things you mentioned? What changed did, in you, about you, around you, or what habit did you change to do that?
Yeah. So there were there were a couple things. One of them I would say is like the inherent laziness of humans as a whole, right? It's a lot easier to be lazy than it is to go work hard. And I was, obviously I'm not I always say like I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I'm not going to MIT or Harvard or anything, but I'm also not the dumbest person. I'm like an intelligent guy. And so I had enough intelligence that I could be kind of lazy, and I could go to class and sort of say I studied and convince myself I studied and then take the test and get an 85 and be like, ah, see, I'm hanging in there. No, nothing too exciting. And, I could go out with friends. I could play my Call of Duty. I could do whatever it was I wanted to do, go ride my bike, that kind of stuff. And so I'm like, I've got the best life here. Like live in this college dorm is a whole new world of fish out there to go explore and ride your bike and drive. I mean, you have a car, so you're like driving cars, and I'm a big car guy too. So lots of distractions. And I think in that transition, I started to say, okay, well, I can't be lazy anymore. And I'm really not hitting my goal of where I want to be. And then there's an element of fear. And I was like, I told you, I never thought I would have a business because to me, and what I knew in the world, especially at the time of like late high school, early college, was I hear about people going out of business. I hear them defaulting on loans. Like, I don't know how you would even make money. I don't want that kind of risk in my life. I just want to know that I can go to work and have a job and feel fulfilled. And so to me at the time, the only way to do that was to go down this pathway and become a physician because I'm like, you very rarely meet physicians who are like, I don't feel like I have an impact in the world, right? Like you're actively caring for people every time you work. So that's checked. Whether you think physicians make a lot or not is a topic of discussion, but there are very few physicians who are truly poor. So I was like, okay, I'll have a way to support myself and my family someday. And so it felt like an option that I needed to figure out a way to solve. And so there was fear of kind of missing out or, dropping the ball. There was athlete in me that liked the challenge that you meet with the pre-med advisor. They look at your high school numbers, they look at your first quarter, and they go, have you considered looking at PA school or nurse practitioner program? I'm like, no, 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 I want to be a doctor. Like, well, we see a lot of applications and these numbers, you may want to reconsider, and I'm like, it's why it's one semester. So, then it kind of became my thing. I'm like, I am going to show you that your numbers are wrong and they don't matter. And I can change that narrative. So it was those three things. It was fighting the laziness or learning how to become efficient. It was fear of failure and a desire to kind of prove that I could do this. It became like a really, really fun challenge.
One of the things I find in talking to people, and actually, I'm really going down this concept as just a dude, not a doctor, but I really believe that there's this psychological barrier for people who have success over time, and it's not necessarily laziness, but it's this readiness delusion.
Mm,
It's the delusion that we're not quite ready to do what we need to do next. It's the delusion that we're not quite ready to be a 3.9
yep.
grade point average student. The delusion
Yep.
that we're not quite ready to own a business, so we'll quote unquote just go to med school. The
Yeah.
delusion that nobody's going to show up for social media if I do it first. All those things, this delusion that we convince ourselves is true. We
Yep.
convince ourselves we're right, but we don't do anything to prove it. There's no proof that we're right or wrong. We just believe it's not us. It's this delusion, hence the delusion of readiness. And I really, I I think that so many of us wrestle with that. And you talked about it. I loved how you said it. You said it. I accidentally got good at swimming.
Yeah.
Oh shit. Damn it, I'm good at this. So
Yeah.
now you couldn't be ready to go modify your dirt bike, your street bike to be a dirt bike. You couldn't be ready
Right.
to do anything but be a swimmer. And then the other thing happened, and it happened to you at 18. It probably happened to you. It happens to most people. I'll do it that way, or it happened to me. It happened again when you're in your 30s and your 40s, where there's this element of guilt. Your coach came and put guilt on you. Hey, if you want to be part of the team, Adam, the smart thing for you to do is to not do this other thing you love. Don't don't explore this other thing that is taking your time and your interest. Don't do it. Be
Oh
loyal
yeah.
to us.
Oh
It's
yeah.
same of an employer. Don't have a side hustle. Be loyal to us. We need your time here.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to do X, Y, and Z. We need your time here. And it guilted you. It took advantage of your loyalty to your
Yep.
team, took advantage of your respect of your coach, and it caused you to wait. It
Oh yeah.
caused you to put this other thing on hold. And I think it happens again and again and again at different points in our lives. But you did something. You took a step back, and that's why I wanted to go back to this point. It's easy to do nothing. You said it's easy to be lazy. True. It's
Sure.
easy to do nothing and just stay.
Yeah.
The easy thing for you to do, honestly, was to stay in the swim team. It
Sure.
was.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
easy thing for you to do would be just to be in med school and not do this other thing on the side. You're busier than hell already. You don't have
Yeah.
time to do this other thing, but you did it.
Right.
You did it. You started. And I it might be the central thing that I want people to take out of this, that you didn't quit med school in order
Right.
to start this. You didn't quit the swim team in order to explore your curiosity on riding motorcycles and having adventure. You didn't quit before you started. You
Right.
started something, and then you learned from it and leaned into it, and you followed it. And I think that's so important for everyone who's listening to pay attention to that.
Yeah. I mean, Lon, you hit it on the head. I think actually an even more poignant example was my residency, right? So we talk about the journey to being a physician, right? We've talked, I mean, everyone now knows this long story of me, right? I've done high school, then I did college, then I did medical school, then I had 3 more years and I extended. So it's 5 years, then I did 3 more years of residency. So now I've done all this, right? You want to talk about guilt in my residency. I've been building this business. Now I have this startup that I've been working on also every day. How could you possibly be studying or reading? You can't take every single healthcare worker I'd come into contact with, by the way. And this was a huge uphill battle for me personally, would say, oh, here comes a guy from TikTok. He probably doesn't know anything. This guy's so worried about his videos. He doesn't know anything. When the truth was, once again, I had to outwork everyone because I didn't know so much more that when they met me, they were impressed, but all they would say is, he's not that dumb, which was a win because they were like, shoot, I wasn't right. Like he's not an idiot. He's normal to work with. He can also be a physician. And as it got worse, right? As I went into my residency and started to say, I don't know that I'm going to do this full time. Like leaving residency, everyone's thing, crushed with $250,000 of loans. You got to start a life. You're 30, you have nothing in savings. Like you need a job, and everyone goes full time. It's taboo not to go full time and not to fully buy into a practice and tell them you're giving them the 3 years and you want the equity track and all. And I'm sitting there going, I've got all this other stuff going on. Like you said, Lon, like I've been working on it. I don't necessarily not want to do medicine. I worked my whole life to do this. I think I like it. I'd like to do that. But I also want to make sure I have time to do this other stuff. And so I made this really tough choice where I started to say to some folks internally, I said, I don't think I'm going to work full time. And you would fall out of your chair at the comments that I would get. I mean, people look and go, what, are you going to make TikToks all day? Okay. Like on and on, oh, I'm going to work on the startup. Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah. Well, it's, I mean, you spent your whole life waiting to take care of patients, but if that's what you want to do. I had someone one time say to me, they're like, man, you have such capitalistic greed. I feel so sorry for you. And I was like, that's probably one of the most like offensive insults I've ever heard. Like it really doesn't have to do with dollars and cents right now. Like I'm educating millions of people. I'm building this platform to support other physicians who want to feel empowered that they can do these other things, and I was like, that one really stung. Like that was an intelligent insult. But a lot of folks had comments, and it was a huge leap of faith. It would have been so much easier to say, you know what, let's just wait. Let's do this attending, let me work full time for 2 years and get my 2, 3 years under the belt, and then I'll consider this. And the same thing when Sanjay called me outside that restaurant and they're at a conference, I could have said, well, you know, I know I should do this thing now, but let me just wait and finish residency. It's too much to do it right now. Right. But you're 100% right. Every single time I said, no, I got to do it. I got to do this right now. I got to give it a shot. And every single time I've, as I said, never looked back, but I truly have never regretted a single one of those decisions. Going through that again right now with the volume of clinical work that I do, the immense guilt from the people that, I work with that I know in clinical medicine. They're like, going to decrease your shifts. Okay. Even more than, because, I work twice what you work. And it's like, yeah, I just feel like it's what I have to do. I'm doing other stuff, and I like having it in the mix, but I got to be true to me. So I resonate with that.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into the Normal 40 podcast. My name is Lon Stroshine, founder of the Normal 40, and I'm super glad you're here. Hey, really quick, by now you know it's my mission to inspire the change in 1,000 lives. And you know that this podcast is just one of the ways I'm doing it. You can also go to my website, normal40.com, and sign up for my free newsletter that comes directly to your inbox. Now, it's not really a newsletter in the sense that you're going to find much news in it. It's just letters from me to you, man, right where you are on your journey. The topics are going to vary from week to week, and I might have a guest article from time to time, but the intent of the Rambler is to meet you right where you're at, and I hope you sign up. You can also sign up for the 14 questions that changed my life. These are questions you can answer for yourself, but these are the questions I wrestled with when I was right where you are. Just a couple other things really quick. A few weeks ago, I launched my book called The Trade, and The Trade within minutes was an Amazon #1 bestseller in multiple categories, and it remains there to this day. I would love it if you'd go buy the book, not because you're going to get something out of me when you read it. It's because the book is going to get something out of you when you read it. Lastly, I've got a closed group off LinkedIn that I call the Insider, and this is where I hang out. I hang out a few times a month in cohorts and in one-on-one calls, and you can come in there and you can join the Insider and you can see for yourself that you are not alone. I would love to see you in there. Look, last thing I'll say is if you're here and this podcast is resonating with you and you can feel something burbling up, I want you to know that you are ready. You are here not because an algorithm. You are here because you are ready. And I want to help you see you through to the other side. Everyone, thanks for being here. Check out the other episodes, and I'm going to see you a little further down the road. Yeah, man. It's the day you start, the day you show up and people notice that you're different than you were yesterday, right? That day, the day they saw your first TikTok, for me is the day they saw my coworkers saw me posting as Lon Stroshine, a guy, rather than Lon Stroshine, the public company executive. There's this judgment that forms, and you can kind of see it and you feel it, but you're also looking for it, because it's like, what are they going to think? I was thinking it. I was thinking,
Yeah.
what are they going to think of? What are they going to think of my voice when I get to sound like me instead of my voice when I echo what the company wants me to say?
Right.
Big difference. Big
Oh, yeah.
difference. And after years and years of being one of those to transition to the other, you can't help but feel anxious. And what I tell people now is if it doesn't look, when you're looking to do something else and it's outside the norm of whatever you do, whether you're an attorney, a physician, an accountant, a public company executive, career military, whatever, when it's outside of the norm of what you do, if somebody on the outside doesn't look at you and say, well, that's an irresponsible decision, then you're probably not doing it right.
Yeah.
It needs to look a little bit irresponsible
Yeah.
for you to be really following your gut. It is going to really look foolish to some, irresponsible.
Yep.
To some. And really, that judgment, the same person who questioned your and qualified your being a capitalist as a negative is the same person who's wrestling with that for himself. He just needed to put it out on someone else and see how the electric shock came back at him.
Yeah.
But I think that first step is gonna feel a little bit risky. One other thing, and you said it, and I hear it again and again and again, especially from physicians. But it's true of physicians, yes. But it's also true of career military who spent 20, 25 years getting their stars and stripes and
Right.
everything they've earned to get there. It's true public company executives who toiled and traveled and I mean, prepared all nights for presentations that didn't even get delivered. I mean, all
Yeah.
those things. Got their
Yeah.
ass chewed off for missing a quarter because of something outside of their control, whatever. When they've dedicated their whole life to something and they want and they've got it, you got through med school. All you had
Hmm.
to do is pick an employer. You got it. You got what you
Right.
wanted. Checked every box. And for you to do something else, to have so much and to feel like you want something else, you can't help but feel shame and guilt for having it. But yeah, but maybe I actually want this. And
Yeah.
so that shame, guilt, and the fear of looking irresponsible keeps people in this fear zone, this place where they're in readiness delusion. I'm not ready because it's irresponsible. I'm
Yeah.
not ready because it took so long to get here. And they discount the sunk cost of what it's going to, of their life to this point, and they allow that sunk cost to keep them where they are rather than using it. It's a sunk cost. You can't get it
Yeah.
back, but you still
Yeah.
get to use it for who you want to be next.
Absolutely.
Tell me about the conversation at home when you said, when you told your dad, uh, "Hey, I think I'm going to lean into this. Hey, did you remember when I was making fun of this girl I was dating for being something called social media?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, after a
Yeah.
couple $100,000 of debt of my own, I think she was onto something, and I think I might go down that path." Tell me about that conversation with your parents.
Yeah. It's funny. It happened in stages. I think when I started with the social media, it was a really, this is, as bad as COVID was, and I experienced it as a clinician. There was one really special part, which was I finished medical school right as COVID was happening. And I actually lived with my parents for part of COVID. So it was like this weird opportunity where I was like a full adult, but also like spent 3 months inside with my parents. And part of that was I was still making content, right? At the time, I was making a lot of educational content around COVID. So my parents kind of saw this process. They actually, I distinctly remember this. I hit 100,000 followers in when I was living with my parents, and we did this kind of stop animation announcement of 100K with scrubs on the floor, and they got really into it. They were having fun. There's nothing else to do, so like they were my cameraman and my crew and everything, which was kind of funny. And I started telling them, gosh, I this TikTok's got this program. They paid me $1,000, and every time, my dad being a good dad was, well, that's fantastic. Put that away, save it for a rainy day because you never know when that's going to go away. This is just a social media thing. I said, I don't know, Dad, I think this is like really something here. Well, you keep doing it as long as you have the time for your studies and all the other stuff, you keep doing it. And
Attaboy, Dad.
right, right. And I keep doing it. And it keeps getting bigger, and I want to give my fiance credit too. She's my girlfriend at the time. And she would really keep me in check. And I'd be like, man, I'm getting all this. I'm getting invited to these VIP things and all. And she's like, all right, but just, put your head back on your shoulders. Like you're still Adam. You're still doing this medicine thing. Like go enjoy, whatever we can do. But yeah, have a good head on your shoulders. And so it was like a team effort that kind of built this and saw this happening. And so I think the risk of it when I kind of made that decision felt a lot more qualified because everyone had seen brick by brick how this was built and how it was sustainable. And it really wasn't, I wasn't an overnight one hit wonder that came out with a single viral video and I'm like, I'm quitting medicine and I am going to open a studio in LA. Like it was never like that. And so when I did have that conversation that, hey, I think I got to give this thing a shot and I'm doing this company, the answer was, well, you've proven that you're a responsible adult to this point. If you think that's what's right and what you want to do, then, we support it and best of luck.
That's fantastic. So let's get to exactly where you are now. You've built a company. You've used all of your experience. I mean,
Yeah.
everything we explored. And like I said, I didn't know you
Yeah.
before this conversation at all. And we started from 9/11 and the influence and your family and your sister in kindergarten, all the way through middle school and college, middle school and high school and dirt bikes and
Yeah.
swim teams and all the things. And all of those things have become this endowment of you, this
Mhm.
endowment of your gifts and skills and talents of what you have. And you poured your right now, this chapter of your life, and who knows how long this chapter is building Medfluencers.
Mhm.
Tell us about what that is and who it aspires to help.
Yeah, so we're the first HCP influencer platform, healthcare provider influencer platform. Platform is kind of a tough word because influencer marketing as a whole has really chewed up the what the space can be. But I think we're like a beautiful hybrid of all of the things. So in one way, think a talent agency. In one way, think a true tech-enabled platform to optimize the way that we are doing marketing campaigns, choosing voices, assessing accuracy, and vetting talent. Right, those are all things that we solve for. Paying in a compliant way, physicians. So there's a lot of tech there. But then also on the other side, there's some creative, and there's this unique part to me and a few other physicians that we work with. who are doctors who speak creative language and marketing, right? And so taking the vision from the brand, the client, the agency, whoever, and saying, hey, this is how we're going to take that really good idea and make it into a 30-second clip that will resonate with particular audiences. And again, leveraging our tech systems to do that. So we do those things by way of these 400 digital opinion leaders. We bring them business opportunities to participate in these educational campaigns. And I really stress educational. There's very few campaigns you'll see that we participate in where it's click the link today to sign up and get $10. Like that's not really what we're doing. It's a lot more of educational, right? Hey, there's a new paper that's out. We have changed the guidelines on this medication. It may be eligible for these patients now, right? Or hey, did you know that this is a equal and not lesser treatment compared to other options out there, right? So we're doing education. Are there apparel? Sure. Like if a scrub company comes and they want to work with some digital opinion leaders, we handle those too, but it's not our main focus. I wouldn't say we're really purpose built for the regulated, and it makes doing those non-regulated very easy. We have all the tools in place, but we really like the challenge of those regulated campaigns and being first to market on those. And what does it mean for me? It's guardrails and it's ethical, responsible medical marketing, if you will. Every opportunity I get to participate in a panel or a discussion around how we do what we do and why we do it this way, I take, because I think it is so important. And there really are a lot of people that either A, don't appreciate the risk or the complexity, or B, don't care because physicians are something to be chewed up and spit out, unfortunately, in this current world. And so the idea is, well, it's kind of the physician's problem. If they screw this up, it's up to them to solve, and we'll just kind of sneak out the back as the agency that was in the middle, and whoops, sorry, and then the brand and the physician are in a world of trouble. And so I never want to feel that way for the physicians that we work with, and they all know that is really to my core why I build Influencers, is to protect these physicians and to protect the way that they are engaging in these relationships, provide education, provide support through our teams and all of that.
What has been, so have you, as you've been able to help physicians somewhat mirror or follow your path, what has been the unexpected blessing in that?
I think there's a sense of, I don't know, empowerment's the right word, support, camaraderie. There's a feeling that we're doing something good. I'll just put it in plain words, right? We are having conversations, educating, informing about things that these physicians didn't even know existed, because why would they? They are physicians who happen to be making this content, right? And as I mentioned, they're getting abused. It used to be, naively, it was just from a pricing. I was like, you're underpaying these doctors. Like, yeah, of course they're underpaying them. That was the tip of the iceberg. Then it started to get into risk. And we're saying, oh man, do you have the right insurance? And they say, insurance for what? And I start sweating. Oh my God, I didn't even know they need insurance, right? So now how do we solve that? Then it get into, okay, is what you're saying actually not legal, but does it follow the guidelines of how we need to disclose information and provide information? So those light bulb moments, and we've spent and invested a lot in those type of tools and physical man hours with these physicians, gives, I think, myself and the team a lot of reward. And seeing that interaction, we get texts and emails all the time from the physicians and other healthcare professionals that we work with that are just really genuine, that say, hey, I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for what you do. It's a pleasure to work with you. And that for us was a big win, because I think there's a lot of skepticism. Again, unfortunately, influencer marketing is something that has been really ground up. And influencers are taken advantage of all the time. And so there was a big trust build, and hey, we are doing these things for you, and we are here to help you and make this a generally better experience for everyone. And so that's been rewarding.
In my vintage coaching, one of the things we start off on is finding your voice. We talked about this a little bit earlier about how over time your voice becomes an extension of something else,
Mm-hmm.
be an extension of an employer,
Mm-hmm.
of a boss, of a particular situation outside of work, be it a marriage, be it a twisted relationship with family. Your voice and how and what you say morphs to satisfy who you are on that day. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think we get to this place where you need to rediscover your voice, and you need to know what it sounds like when you get to sound like you.
Yeah.
And you don't have to apologize. It doesn't give you permission to be rude. That's not what this is. But it's just the permission to know what you sound like when you get to sound like you. And when I hear you saying, who do you help and what do you do? You're helping these doctors who've had to be an extension of an insurance company, of a healthcare system, of a legal umbrella, and
Right.
you're helping them feel safe to learn their voice, to know what
Mm-hmm.
they sound like when they get to sound like them. And there is nothing, I get what you're saying, how awesome that would feel for you, because you know how miserable it is when you don't have that basic decency of
Right.
knowing what it sounds like when you get to sound like you. So, dude, I think that's fantastic.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You mentioned when we talked last time, you mentioned something. I'm gonna look at my notes here.
Yeah.
The Healthcare Social Media Academy. What is that? And I'd imagine this is the thing you're doing to help people. Tell me what that is.
It is. It's the latest thing I tried to say no to a million times and got pushed over on. But
But you
uh,
accidentally got good at it, and here we are.
yeah, yeah. Well, so yeah, my accidental was, learning how to do this social media thing. And for years, I've kind of thought it'd be cool if I could teach others to do that. We have this agency now at Medfluencers that is very purpose built and focused and does this one thing, which is compliant marketing campaigns. But it's not really about building the physicians, right? So external to that, in my endless free time at night, and kudos to Patrick for pushing me on this. But he said, you've got to, I worked with Patrick a little, and he said that the way that you've transformed how I communicate on camera, you got to tell other people this. We got to get it in front of people. I said, no, 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 I can't. I can't. He was working on me for months. And so I actually ran into, and this is kind of hot off the press. It'll come out in January, but I was giving a talk up here in Jersey at a pharma event, and some folks came up to me from Tulane University, and they said, that was amazing. And we want our doctors to be able to do what you do. Would you consider coming down to teach them? And I gave the same polite answer. So, I'm really flattered. Thank you. I'm tapped out on time. I don't think I could do that. And they're like, really? Even if we co-developed it, almost supported it in a way? I'm like, I suppose if it was basically no lift for
I'm
me, right?
listening.
Yeah, right. If all of the costs were covered and I didn't have to worry about out of pocket on this thing, and I had time to do it, there wasn't a time crunch. Yeah, I probably could make like a really compelling course on how I do what I do, how I do what I call knowledge translation, taking those complex topics and making them into 30-second bites. And, I could bring in my editor and we could talk about the basics of editing up through advanced. And so we actually built what's called Healthcare Social Media Academy, which is this, course that we're going to launch. It's going to come out early in January, and we're launching it in partnership with Tulane University. And it is a course designed for healthcare professionals to find their voice, to become experts in the digital space, to feel empowered, to put that first piece of content out there and know how to do it with a level of expertise. I think, and I would tell anyone this, like, you don't need a course to make your first video. And if you don't want a course, don't take a course. But if you really want to excel, I tried to pour the heart and soul. It took me about 6 months of writing. Actually, it's about a 60-page script. When we had it all said and done and got into the studio, we did it with a teleprompter and, really tried to make this thing just a professional solution. And we're actually looking at ways, is there a way that we can even give CME to optimize the time for these HCPs, right? If they're having to invest some time, it's probably about 3 hours of course material. Is there a way for us to give some credit back as well to the education side they need to fulfill? So we are rolling that out. We're super, super excited. There's going to be, advancements with that as well in a coaching setup. I think we're already seeing a lot of folks who are interested in, awesome, yeah, I want the course, but like, can I get access? Is there a way that we can have like a community or a training or, some type of feedback? So we're looking at that too. And then of course, the inevitable is the healthcare systems are starting to come and say, hey, I heard there's this thing out there. Can we get this for our physicians? So trying to set that up as well. My goal would be to make, every physician in America an excellent digital communicator, right? So the next communication frontier. I think this is an easy and affordable way to do it.
Is there a place people can go who can to learn more? I mean, I know this is new. I know you
Yeah.
you just got done kind of recording it, but is there a place that we can send people right now to check it out?
hsmacademy.org. So it
HS.
would
All
have
right.
been HSMA Academy, but then it got too many A's. So hsmacademy.org. And you'll find the website. It's kind of just a placeholder right now, to be honest. So, don't go too hard. But there is certainly a contact us if you're particularly interested in that. You can fill out the form. And right now we're kind of taking bespoke requests because it's so new and, just trying to decide, of course, the course will exist, but we've definitely had some unique requests on, building out consulting programs and unique experiences. There's one actually that can't speak about yet, but that's in the pipeline for late January, where a health system actually is like, hey, yes, we want the course, we want the stuff, but we also want it in person, and we want to bring some DOLs so they can meet these people and see the possibility and get live feedback. So we're partnering with Medfluencers, of course. It's my company as well, and so we've bundled that in as a partnership, and we have this ability to bring industry experts outside of just myself and really get the live feedback. So you can, yeah, for now, it's just to fill out a contact form there, but hopefully that's helpful for those who are interested.
Awesome. One more question.
Please.
You're probably somebody who's got a lot of demand on your time. And from the moment we were connected by email, right down to scheduling this podcast, dude, you've been totally approachable. And in fact, I connected you with somebody else who maybe there's some magic to be made, independent of me or anyone else. And it's just really cool. And you immediately said, yeah, this sounds exciting. Let me talk to him. And you're just very, very approachable. And those are my kind of people, right? Just you, even though you've got a couple million followers and you're a doc and you got all these things, and probably right after this, you're going to talk to somebody who's doing something very different than me. And so I want to set it up with that you hats off to your family and your fiance for making sure your head stays on your shoulders. Because, dude, I'm telling you, it's awesome. Um, what is that one thing? If you could just point to that one skill, the one talent, the one trigger that has taken you, a dude who had a blog about how to read it back again, how a pseudo failure can get into med school. I mean, that's kind of how
Yeah.
you how you ground yourself. What is that one thing that a dude like you continues to apply that inspires you, motivates you to lean into what might be next?
Yeah. It's a two-pronged thing for me. I was just talking about this a couple nights ago as well. The first thing I think is to just be unapologetically and authentically yourself all the time. You just have to be you. I've never been the most popular guy in the room. I'm not the life of the party. Like I'm a nice guy, but it's not like the quarterback of the football team. But that's okay. Like you just be yourself, and people will like that, and other people won't, and that's okay. Be a good person. So that's arm one, and then I think the other one is this comes from the swimming days, but we had a coach and he was always like, you need to be willing to outwork every other person in the pool. And whatever my feelings are in swimming, I found through college, right? The way that I learned was I would rewrite my notes by freaking hand time and time again until I knew everything in the notebook. It was horribly inefficient, right? I found better ways to study later on, but I just knew that I was working harder than, let's say 90% of the people out there. And that would set me up. And it's not a competition externally, it's just internally where I'm like, I need to outwork the competition. I need to outwork what I did myself yesterday and just continue to strive to be more efficient, more tenacious with how I'm taking on tasks. And I love, pushing myself for those challenges, just constantly working harder.
All right, man. Um, well, just one observation I'll share. You talked about growing up in a Jewish house, you had one of three professions to choose from. You could be a
Yeah.
doctor, a lawyer, or a business owner. And so you landed on being a doctor.
Yeah.
But in the process, you've created a way to be a doctor
Yeah.
who owns a business, who helps doctors navigate a very treacherous legal landscape. And you
Yeah.
do it by number four, which is a good thing it wasn't an option for you because you'd have done it. Dude, you're a teacher.
Yeah.
Again and again and again, you show up as a teacher for others. You use that word probably 5 or 6 times, and you probably didn't even know it. But you're a hardwired teacher. You learn, distill, share. I mean, that
Yeah.
is your gift, and you've got a talent for it. I'm better for it. Our listeners are going to be better for it, and that's why you were good enough to give us an hour of your time here, man. And I really appreciate you taking time to do it.
I appreciate that, Lon. That's a really nice sentiment in that, and you're spot on. I love teaching, love helping others, and thank you to the listeners for tuning in.
Dude, where can people find you? I know, look, I'm going to send all 28,000 of my followers
I
your
love it.
way. You won't see a blip,
I'll see it.
but
I'll
they're
see it.
there.
Yeah, I look. Yeah, it's at See the Medlife, SEE the Medlife. Those are kind of the social handles. And then it's just my name, Adam Goodcoff on LinkedIn if you want to connect there in a more personal setting or kind of follow along. I'm admittedly not as good at sharing there, but I do my best and yeah, would love to connect with anyone.
All right, man. Dude, thanks for being here. Thanks for being you. I love your mission. And I have a feeling that you and I are going to intersect at least a few more times in our lifetime. And those will be good days.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Lon.
All right. See you on the next page, boss.
Bye.
Hey, everybody, that's going to do it for me. That's a wrap on this episode of Normal 40, the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. And most importantly, thanks to my good friend, Dr. Adam Goodcoff. Dude, I love what you're doing. I love your mission. I love your passion. And I love where you're trying to take everyone, to just help everyone find their pure voice, to know what it sounds like when they get to sound like them. It sounds easy and does hard. And after 20 years of learning what your voice isn't, it sure is fun to learn what your voice is. For the listeners, thank you for being here. It means a lot to me that you are. If this resonated with you, there's many more where this came from. Find another podcast. Also, you can download or buy my book, The Trade. I wrote it for you. Don't expect that you're going to get anything out of it. That's not why I wrote it. I wrote it so that it gets something out of you. And I can't believe how often it does. Everyone, thanks so much for being here. Damien Boudreau, thank you so much for writing this theme music. And I'm going to see all of you on the next page.